I'd mess it up.
Recording in progress.
Thank you very much. Well, welcome to you all. I appreciate that you're here, and we're very thankful that you're participating. And today is March 11th, 2026. This is our community meeting with the Mattacheese Utilization Committee and the BSC Group, which is our consultant, planning consultant. And my name is Sharon Weimer, and I've been serving as the chair of the Mattacheese Utilization Committee for over the last year and a half. And there are the other members that are also have been serving a long time. Today, I would like to say that we have Barbara Lavoine from the committee in the front row, as well as Joe Potska. And the other members could not be attending, although one is presently at a finance committee meeting, so maybe afterwards he might join us. And Andrew Laird is our vice chair. Lindsay Pietro is our secretary clerk. John Anderson is the one attending the finance committee. Barbara Lavoine, I just said, and Joe Potska. Casey Schmidt and Roby Whitehouse is our DPW representative. Our first slide today, thank you, is in regards to our agenda tonight. And we hope to do an overall presentation that includes our scope of work, of which I will speak about, and part of the project background are about our land use teams. Heather is going to be speaking about our survey that we did in July, the results, as well as the workshop results, because we met after the survey and talked about a number of issues, as well as the building assessment, the site conditions and constraints, which was a map at the beginning out in the hall, and then also the conceptual site plans that you might see on the 5 boards and easels that are spread around the room, but are also in the packet and will be in the agendas pictures that we're having here, as well as the site readiness assessment, which Megan Eldridge will speak about, and then our next steps, and then we're hoping that you would ask any questions that you may have, and after that, we would ask you to also view the larger maps, and if you wanted to put right on it, we have sticky notes that to put right on the posters, thank you, and we'll also have people there taking your comments if you'd prefer to do that. So we thank you again for coming. So the first slide after is the scope of work. And what I wanted to say is that under the auspices of the select board, the specific charge we were given was in part to create an effective reuse of the site, a proposal for the site, to ensure inclusion of the many interests of the property in an impartial manner, and combine that input with technical support, which Heather has been giving us with her company. Further, determine alternative scenarios 3 that will contribute to one of the many of the following areas: economic, cultural, recreational, tourism, social, housing, parks, community centers, or educational development of the town of Yarmouth. There have been discussions, too, as to the possibility of the adjacent M.E. Small elementary school moving. As a result, that possibility is considered in this analysis. I'll start off with some information a little bit back up regarding the scope of work, and also with information from our land use teams. Then the director of planning will speak out first. I've gone over that. I apologize. After your question, I did that too. So our scope of work, our budget was passed in our 2022 fall town meeting, and the town then knew the Mattacheese school would be vacated. The amount passed was $225,000, and in 2023, the select board now created our charge, reflecting what we would be asked to do as a committee working for the select board. In September of '24, the board selected the members of the committee, and we started our work in November of 2024. Moving to a small discussion, thank you for switching that. Yep. No, the former assistant town administrator, Bill Scott, coined the term land use teams and also learning from the knowledgeable. What we ended up doing was, as a committee, we ended up being the liaisons to the teams, and we tried to proceed and let them know what the select board wanted. By the time April and May rolled around, we had finished 3 different meetings for most of the groups. The first meeting was what we referred to as brainstorming, and we asked for everybody's ideas. The second meeting was reconciliation, where we took those ideas and asked them to reduce to the 3 most important three most important ideas. And then by the final, we would want one idea, but in 2 versions, one an elevated and one a moderate. And most of the committees did that. So the next slide shows what their one proposal was, or an attempt to show what the one proposal was. And one of them was education, was limited to a discussion with Bill Scott and Dr. Mark Smith of the DY District, who wrote his memo describing his desire and request for keeping 6 to 8 acres of land from the site for a new ME Small School. He also provided a detailed timeline for their feasibility study of where they would like to locate a new school or add on to another. The ME Small Building Committee started in 2025 and will take approximately 914 days to complete that study. The Committee of 3, I call it, but it's Conservation, Open Space, and the Water Department, ended at the 3rd meeting, as they are mostly a regulatory group. Although they did have some ideas for the committee to consider, they are concerned, and they were concerned about outdoor artificial turf. Their ideas listed such items as, if there are areas that become restored with native vegetation, they would consider a pollinator pathway or monarch way station as being interesting for their groups. They are interested in getting help removing litter and tires from across the Vernal Pool site and incorporating signs for educational purposes in an active area they are involved with. Their full sheet of comments is located on our website. Housing has a very detailed plan. They had an advantage of securing a grant of time from the Barrett Planning Group, which was also shared with Economic Development. This is an area where perhaps we can better some of our language, and I have one example to give that I hope we'll just keep working on. In housing, in this product, it says in our sheet that's in front of those that took the packet, it says, under moderate, it says 62 rental units, and then in parentheses it describes multifamily buildings, 2 or 3 stories, mixed unit size, which would be a 1 or 2 or 3 bedroom unit. And if it says mixed income, and then it says mixed income 25 to 50% affordable, ending parentheses. The housing plan is more specific, and it says mixed income with 25 to 50% of units being affordable. There's a distinct difference in flavor there. So I think we're still working on language and hope to keep working on that as we go forward. Economic development had similar moderate and elevate sports facility. The size was chosen on a large size, 120,000 square feet, so that we would have an opportunity to see it on Heather's conceptual plans as to how it fits in, whether it fits in. It can always go down and be viewed that way. And the next step studies will better clarify a size. Comparing at benchmarking will help, and this will there's still much to do. Anyway, all of the finals are posted on our website, along with a lot of other information that may be of interest to you. And now our next slide, Heather Gould, Director of Planning with the VS Group, will talk about our next agenda items.
Thank you, Sharon. As Sharon mentioned, all of that information that she just reviewed is up on the town's website. It is very thorough in terms of everything that the MUC committee talked about, everything the land use teams talked about. All of the results of the community meeting and survey results are up on that website. I will go through it in kind of a brief fashion here, but if there is more information that you're looking for or questions you have, you can go to that website and find that information there as well. So one of the first tasks that the SC group had to do when we came into this project, we came in at the tail end of the land use team's process. So we were involved in the development of a survey, working with the MUC committee on trying to figure out how the community felt about different uses at the site, related to municipal use, related to recreational use, related to housing, economic development, a lot of what the land use teams talked about. And we tried to use the information received through the land use team's process to help further inform and clarify within the survey itself. Based on the survey, it was conducted online from May 29th, 2025 through June 30th, 2025. 656 responses were filled out for that survey, and a majority of the respondents identified creating a vibrant mixed-use community hub as the most important benefit to reusing the site. Uses such as indoor and outdoor recreation, wellness facilities, and spaces for arts, education, and cultural programs was a kind of a highlight, as well as strong support for multi-use recreational programming and spaces. And there was a range of support for housing with a slight preference for low and medium density development, and also affordability standing out as a higher priority for those who had expressed that they would like to see housing there. So looking at this image here, and I know it's really hard to see because it's so small, the support that was expressed with a strong support for uses was a multi-sport indoor facility, walking trails, a community gathering space, an amphitheater or outdoor event space, an indoor pool, outdoor fields, playground, and aquatic center. And the multi-sport indoor facility received, support by more than half of the respondents to the survey. 56.4% identified that as a use that they would support there. And that's important to the concepts that I'm going to present in terms of informing how we came up with the uses that we developed on those site plans. When asked what types of housing would be appropriate for the site, respondents expressed support for, a whole range, a whole host of housing options. Townhouses, single-family homes, those were the most supported. And then higher density options, which received moderate support, not necessarily as high, were apartment buildings and condos. Other proposed alternative ideas include mixed-use development, affordable and senior housing, 55-plus communities, multi-generational homes, RV/campground, tiny homes, and dormitory-style housing. So respondents were able to fill in some information as well where they felt like something was missing, and that was feedback that we received through that process. We had a community workshop on July 15th of last year, and we really wanted to dig a little deeper on certain topics and find consensus on uses. So the feedback that we received was that a community center was desired, but there were concerns about costs, and there were other priorities that kind of rose higher as more important to the people who were in the room providing the feedback. The gymnasium itself is actively used at the Mattacheese site. It's valuable to the community. However, there are costs to renovate, and there's hazardous materials currently within the building. A sports facility with a good proximity to Route 28, potential tax revenue. There were concerns about traffic and a possible exclusion of town residents. So a lot of support for an indoor sports facility. However, there needed to be some kind of benefit to the community in letting people use that facility in off hours or on certain days or the like. In terms of the housing desired, as mentioned before, for workforce, seniors, or municipal employees, affordable and attainable housing. Possible grants could be available, but there were concerns about the density and type and how those units would be managed. Infrastructure, so sewer, traffic, impacts on town services generally in terms of development at the site. In terms of economic development, there's an acknowledgement that there needs to be year-round activity to help boost the local economy, rentable facilities, off-season uses, helping to balance that tax burden, and then really thinking about how anything would fit in, any development there would fit in with the existing transportation system. Open space in the environment, there are areas on the site that we would want to preserve and have them remain undeveloped. How could we look at resilient design and how it connects to nearby conservation areas? Ultimately, a discussion point within this community workshop was that the property is town-owned now, so that gives the town better control in decisions and has the town at the table when it comes to negotiating with the developer and working with the developer for the ultimate redevelopment of the site. From there, we worked with an architect, Catalyst, who is local to Yarmouth. And there was a previous report that was available to us to look at in terms of how much would it cost to remediate the building and demolish it. That was done by Axios. Catalyst looked at that report as well as the existing information that was available on the Mattacheese school building itself. And one of the biggest hurdles at the beginning of the process was for the MUC committee was really trying to figure out, does it make sense to renovate the building or does it make sense to demolish the building? And the Catalyst report, this is kind of a snippet of some of the options that were explored, looking at the demolition of all structures, looking at partial demolition of certain structures, looking at full renovation of the entire building, looking at completely demolishing and constructing a new building, looking at that being for both recreation or housing. So there was a lot that was considered here. There was a lot discussed with the committee members. Ultimately, I think the biggest takeaway from this part of our exercise in terms of the building assessment findings was that the building was in poor condition. It's getting worse. Money would need to be put into it no matter what. The Catalyst report showed that there was a high cost to renovate the structure and that new construction would cost less. So ultimately, Muck came to the recommendation that the demolition of the entire building, including the gym, provided kind of the most opportunity when it came to the redevelopment of the site. Land has a value to it, and the town has this land, and therefore they're able to ultimately decide at the end of the day what is going to happen at that site. So looking at the next step of our process, where we were to take all the information that we received from the land use teams, the MUC committee, and the community survey and the community meeting, we were tasked with looking at how to come up with conceptual site plans for the redesign of the site. The first thing that we did here was we looked at the existing conditions and the constraints on the land to figure out where we could build, where we couldn't build, where it made sense to maintain access ways, where were there any kind of environmental resources that were identified that we wanted to avoid, and make sure we had enough of a buffer around. So, in general, the site is 70 acres. It is located in the residential 40 zoning district and an aquifer protection overlay district. There is an acknowledgement that at the point that a recommended path forward in terms of a site plan, one single site plan design happens, that zoning will need to be changed. So that is something that will be a future effort in terms of figuring out what zoning conditions actually need to be there. Looking at Tar Pond, which is shown in yellow on this map, there's a vernal pool over there that has setback limits. There's constraints there. There is some wooded swamp. The police training facility is to the right of the site on this image here. So what we did with this is we took all of those constraints and we made them all one color. It's kind of an orangey brownish color on this map here. And that identified all of the areas on the site that we wanted to stay away from in terms of where we proposed development to happen. Another step that we took in this process as we went through our design process was looking at a sports complex and what that would entail. There were some benchmarking examples that the Economic Development Committee, in terms of the land use teams, came up with and identified. However, we wanted to dig a little deeper, so we did additional research. We looked at different sports facilities across New England, and we created a table that identified all kinds of information that would help us to figure out how to site a building, how to put it on a design in terms of what kind of shape a building is on a site, in terms of how the parking was oriented, in terms of how outdoor playing fields were oriented. And we used that benchmarking to really help us as we went through our design development. Additionally, we pulled out some main findings from all of that information we gathered. And it includes that, regional sports facilities vary widely in scale. Some were 80,000 square feet buildings, some were 160,000 square foot buildings. Some were built in phases where there was a first phase of one building wing and then there was a second phase of another building wing. Construction costs vary, but they generally fall within a predictable range. The successful sports complexes that tended to start smaller and expand really had that year-round programming, which is really important here in terms of looking at it from our efforts. That brings that revenue diversity that's needed. The facilities were often privately developed, but they require municipal partnership, including the zoning flexibility, as I mentioned before. But in the some of the examples we found, it was the municipality selling the land to a developer and having a general development agreement that identified certain conditions in terms of the reuse. The facilities, in terms of their locations, they were within a major highway. They were accessible. They supported a regional market. And there is a strong and continued growing demand, it would seem, for indoor turf and multi-sport indoor complexes, especially in New England with the weather that we have. So to move it forward in terms of getting to the point of why you're here and the concepts themselves. BSC designed 3 conceptual site plans. One of the site plans that we developed has a couple of different alternatives, and those are along the wall here, the 3 of them, which are alternative C. We have alternative A and B in the back of the room as well. It's really important to note that these concept plans are just that. They're conceptual. They show early feasibility. It's a test fit to make sure that certain sizes for fields, certain sizes for buildings can be kind of fit in on the site. And during the design development process, the MUC committee discussed several main points. There's long-term financial, economic, and community benefits to the redevelopment of the site. Relative to the design, sustainability and resilience are important considerations. Housing is contemplated on these site plans through a range of options and densities. Multi-use fields have been designed for maximum flexibility, so we kind of designed the largest type of field that you could possibly need to show that it could fit. And it not only fits soccer fields, but it also can be used for lacrosse and field hockey. Any real field sport could use these fields and have the dimensions they need there. And they provide a menu of development options. So where you might see something on the site in one location, if you feel like it would be better in a different location on the site, then you can see how it would fit just by eyeballing it. There's multiple viable layouts. BSC is not recommending one use over another. We're simply presenting options to say, hey, this is what we heard. This is what the community has expressed they want to see, and this is how it could fit. And then finally, these elements can all be arranged. They can be phased. The school is important to the discussion since the future is still unknown. So you'll see that we've accommodated that in one of our site plan designs. But I think it could be applicable to all of them in terms of a phased approach to development. And then just how we got there, because there's another meeting I didn't mention that we had here where we had facilitated small group discussions, and we asked a lot of questions about different uses, and then we went through a scenario planning design process. So that first picture you see, that was here where we were looking at the site and saying, we'd really like to see housing in this portion of the site, and we'd really like to see a sports complex over here. Perhaps maybe we just wanted a commercial building over on this side of the site, and the groups all discussed that and vetted that through. From there, BSC created what we called bubble diagrams, which helped to inform our kind of more final, I don't want to say final because they're still drafts, but a more final version of the site plan drafts that are up for review right now. And those helped the MUC committee really hash out a lot of the concerns and a lot of the issues and and looking at spacing and uses and where it made sense and all of that. So, you know, generally what we arrived at in terms of our design development process was that there are different elements within these plans. A regional sports facility with supporting parking and circulation, multi-use athletic fields, the integration of housing, open space, and pedestrian connections, all with a consideration of buffers, wetlands, and mapped environmental constraints and neighborhood characteristics. There are key differences across the concepts, and that includes the housing intensity and the type of housing, the number and the configuration of the athletic fields, traffic access and internal circulation patterns, treatment of the solar field area. And that's the first time I mentioned this, but it is important in terms of looking at the concept plans and the phasing of the development. And just, again, understanding that these are conceptual test fits. We're here to gather information back again and then make kind of working with Muck to make a final recommendation as to what are the 3 preferred reuse scenarios at the site. So with that, I will walk you through each of the different concepts. Alternative A is a sports facility and residential development. Half of the site is really for the recreational use and half of it is for the housing use. We have access and circulation at 2 points along Higgins Crowell Road. One would be the sole use of the sports facility and playing fields area, and then the other would be the sole use for the housing that would be constructed there. And there is a lane, and I know it's hard to see right here. This is an emergency access lane so that if there needed to be some kind of access provided for some reason between the 2 sites, that would be available for that, but in most cases that would have some kind of gate or be closed off. It's just there to satisfy having some sort of connection between the 2. But primarily there would be a buffer between the uses, so they would remain kind of on their own. There's setbacks along Higgins Crowell Road, so the fields would not be right on top of the road and parking would not be right on top of the road. There's a buffer between the residential housing on Chickadee Lane and where the playing fields would be. We did program a little bit of space here for police department parking overflow. There were some instances where the police department has to park along this access way because they have larger meetings and they don't have the parking availability. So we heard that and we programmed that in as a placeholder here. We have 2 6-unit subdivisions. Those are single family homes, smaller in size. And we also have an apartment complex here, and that is a 60-unit apartment development, so 30 units in each of the buildings, as well as 6 townhomes here. There'd be a playground space, there'd be a community space for this apartment complex. With each of the facilities, we've programmed parking. So there's approximately 125 parking spaces for the apartment development, and there are 385 parking spaces for the sports facility. This building here, and every building that represents the sports facility complex on these plans, is for 120,000 square feet. The dimensions of that are so that we can have a full-size playing field within the building. These 4 fields, again, are multi-use fields, so a variety of different sports. And then we have actually programmed a walking path that would go around the fields for people who may not want to necessarily watch practices or games and want to kind of get a little bit of exercise while they're doing it. So that's alternative A. The total number of residential units here as proposed is 78. So it falls into that moderate density that the housing land use teams identified as appropriate. Alternative B is the sports facility, school, and residential. This one is a little bit more compact. We have the 8 acres here, just over 8 acres that we've left as kind of a placeholder for the school. We did not try to do any kind of redesign of the school in any way. We just said, here's a block, that's where the school could fit. We've programmed to have single-family houses on Chickadee Lane on the opposite side to help build out that street. The key difference between the houses that are on the left of Chickadee Lane versus the houses on the right is the size of the lots. On the left, they're 40,000 square foot lots. On the right, we have 20,000 square foot lots here, and that fits 6 single-family homes comfortably. So we have this as being the main access off of Higgins Kroll. We have an apartment complex here. There's three buildings with 20 units each, so you still maintain the 60 units on the site with the 6 townhomes, the playground, and the community building with the programmed parking of approximately 115 spaces. The playing fields for the sports facility side. We have 4 of them again. We maintain a buffer between this resource area here, this wetland.
You clicked. Yeah, you went forward.
Sorry, I hit the wrong. Here we go. It's the same concept for that too. So we have about 480 parking spaces for the sports facility on this side. And we have bus parking in every one of the concepts with the sports facility. We did program bus parking. We programmed a drop-off lane and easier access for a larger vehicle to move around the site. The one thing to point out here is that this is within a constraints area right now. It is undeveloped here. The thought would be that whatever is disturbed from the demolition of the Mattacheese building now would be replaced by kind of having to use this part of that constraints area. So right now this is disturbed. It would go to be undisturbed. It would be naturalized where this might be disturbed, but there's no massive change in the amount of land that is preserved. I hope that makes sense. In terms of overall housing density here, we're looking at 72 units of housing here overall. Alternative C1 is a sports facility and residential. In this particular concept, as I mentioned, this side of the site remains the same as what I explained from the prior site plan. The addition here is that we added 4 single-family homes on Higgins Kroll Road, and then we have a townhome development of 32 units here, and we still have the apartment development here with the 66 units. So the 60 apartment and then the 6 townhome. This is the highest density for housing that we've programmed on the site, and the total number of housing units here is 108. So you'd have the 10 single-family homes, you'd have the 32 townhomes, you'd have 60 apartment units, and then another 6 townhomes. Alternative C2 sports facility. This one was to show you could fit a 5th field if you wanted to up in the back of the site here, and you could also make it so that you could program a baseball field or a softball field or both along with an additional rectangular playing field, just to show that there is flexibility in terms of where the fields would be located, and there is enough room there to do that. We have the 66 unit development. We just shifted that down here in this concept, and we maintained the 10 single family homes here. Total housing count here for units is 76. And then finally, alternative 3, one of the discussion points, as I mentioned, was about sustainability and resilience. looking at the solar panel configuration that's there currently, and looking at phasing of a site and how that could come into play here with maintaining the solar facility and the revenue that's brought into the town now. Identifying that solar field as kind of a future development area and showing that no matter what, a development could be fit around it in a way. So we show that you can still have 108 units of housing along with the sports facility and the playing fields, but also maintain that solar field as it is right now for even future development moving forward. You could likely fit more housing units there if the solar field was decommissioned. In all of the prior concepts, and I should have said this from the start, in all the prior concepts I just walked through, that solar field would be decommissioned and dismantled, and so development would be, where that is now. So I'll let Megan talk now. I think I've done enough of it.
Thank you. My name is Megan Eldridge. I'm the Director of Community Development. I am going to let you know that we have received a $200,000 mass development grant, which is wonderful news to help with site readiness. And using that $200,000, we will be able to hire 2 separate firms to work on pre-development planning and site readiness for the next phase of the project. The first firm that we will hire will focus on planning, engineering, permitting, ecological science, climate resilience, landscape architecture, land surveying, and the GIS mapping elements. The second firm will focus more on the marketing, feasibility, infrastructure strategy, development finance strategy, and developer engagement and solicitation. And in doing so, we will have a site that is ready when we are ready to go. Moving to the next slide. The details of the tasks of the 2 firms, the site preparation, pre-development, and permitting analysis. That firm will work on due diligence. They'll be doing the site survey, resource delineation, environmental site assessment, and water sewer capacity analysis. They'll move on to doing studies such as transportation, roadways, and traffic impacts, and then work on permitting and zoning analyses. And lastly, they will provide pro forma development, which is to finalize a layout in order of magnitude cost estimates. The second firm working concurrently will work on a market analysis, which is a comprehensive market study to define and evaluate the potential for multi-use sports facility, including demand and fiscal impacts. They will do a needs by sport evaluation, competitive landscape, look at site location competitiveness, projected visitation, stakeholder engagement, fiscal impacts, and data analysis. They'll move on to development finance strategy, where they will look at property tax revenue projections, district improvement financing, tax increment financing, and other incentives, leveraging grant funding to offset infrastructure and pre-development costs. And lastly, they will support the preparation of a request for proposals, including town preferences. And since we own the land, we have the option to include a comprehensive list of requirements that the town is looking for when a private developer is to take over this site, so that we are able to control what we have planned there.
Okay, and just in terms of the next steps, where we are in this process here, as mentioned before, there's been a lot of work done to date over the last year and a half. This is our final community meeting to present the concepts. Throughout the month of March, we are drafting our final report and finalizing the conceptual site plans that will be presented to the MUC committee for them to consider. We have a final presentation to the select board in April. And then May will kick off the next phase of the project, which is that mass development site readiness assessment, which will take approximately 12 to 18 months to complete. So here's your chance to provide your feedback. Just wanted to set some ground rules. I know I don't have to say this, but it's a good practice to just have some ground rules up on the screen while everybody is providing their feedback. We ask that you identify yourself, that you be respectful. You know, everybody can have their different opinions. We can agree to disagree. We can listen to understand. Let's keep our comments constructive and on topic. Respect different viewpoints, speak from personal experience. A lot of I statements, I feel, I believe, are appreciated. You know, letting the speaker have their space and to share their air. And then if you disagree, please come up to the podium and you know, do it respectfully. And just know that everybody belongs here, and we really appreciate your time being here tonight and your feedback.
So it's now your turn. We hope you might have some comments and some questions. Yes, sir. If you'd go to the podium.
I have a question.
Would you go to the podium?
Sorry. My name is John Merck, and how would the solar panels, where will they be used if you use solar panels? Would it be for the sports facility or homes there, or how would that be used if you kept it?
So, Kathy, do you want to answer this one?
Right now, it's being used by the schools and bringing income into the town. So if somebody was going to be putting in something for their particular development, unless we put something in the RFP or the proposal saying we want to have a certain percentage of any type of solar that you put on your building. Obviously, the sports complex, they typically have a nice roof that you can put a lot of solar on. Maybe there's something in the RFP where the town takes some of that solar power. So to be determined a little bit, but right now the town and the schools get the benefit of the solar arrays.
So you're not sure, and that would mean whether you're going to keep that particular field or not.
Correct.
So you make a decision on how they're going to be used.
Presently, it stays with the school, as Kathy said. So
Yeah,
as long as the school is there, it hooks to the school.
Okay, so that would go to the school, but if the
Right.
school isn't there, would the solar panels go away then?
We
Possibly?
think it probably would.
Oh, it would. And
And follow the school, wherever it's going to go, if they're not choosing the Mattacheese site.
are they looking for another site for the elementary school, or is it going to be there?
Right. It's with the Massachusetts School Authority that they're working with now. So they've just started their own building committee. And the first part of their building committee will be hiring some help, but then looking to determine where they want to build or add on to a school. So they
School may not be on
may
this
not
site.
be there, which is why we're doing two ways.
By the way, I think you're doing an excellent job.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Who's next? Come on now. Hey, Debbie.
Hi, Debbie Clark, and I think you're doing a great job. I mean, you guys have moved right along. You've worked very, very hard, and Recreation CPA really appreciate the work you've done,
Well, thank
and
you,
I want to
Debbie.
thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome.
Yes, Mike.
I'm Michael Barry. I represent senior softball, but I really represent active seniors who do lots of things and are looking for facilities to do them. So I notice on alternative C2, it's the only one where there are some fields for softball. What we're really looking for is a site that has two fields, because we can't bring tournaments into just one field. It's kind of like kissing your sister. It's not a big economic input. So we're really looking whether it's Sandy Pond, where we use the field there now. That field actually is too small for us. We only have our most seniors there because people hit it over the fence and over the screen into the playground area. So we're looking for 300-foot fields. Sandy Pond is 275. So, and on alternative C2, I know you talked about flexibility, but one is at 300 foot, the other is at 230. That's a Little League. What we're really looking for is multi-purpose. If you had two 300-foot fields that could be downscaled to 230 or any other with portable fencing, we do that elsewhere. So 2 fields at 300 feet is important. On an inside facility, we have people now that travel up to Bridgewater, Mass, over an hour away to go to a very old facility where we can have some indoor softball. We're really looking for that multi-purpose indoor facility as well, where it has enough room that you can hang nets and close things off, and on Monday it's pickleball, and Tuesday it's softball, and Thursday it's something else. That's the type of flexibility that would help us seniors. And it would keep seniors on the Cape in the winter months. A lot of seniors tend to go down south because they want the warmth, but if you had activities here, you'd have more seniors staying on the Cape. I thank you for what you're doing. A little personal background. When Marguerite Small opened up, I was in kindergarten. When Mattacheese opened up, I entered 7th grade. So then I went to DY. We did double sessions before they kind of, so I've been here a long time. I appreciate what you're doing.
And Mike, you also have worked for CPA here in the town of Yarmouth.
I was the CPA person here in Yarmouth for about
Right.
3 years.
We appreciate that. And before you go, the town itself did a field analysis for the recreation department. And in that presentation that they just made recently to the select board, and you can find it on the town's website as well, and it's a large product, but they were recommending Sandy Pond for the 2 softball fields. Whether the town that eventually gets all of this, what they do is going to be their decision, but they were talking about fixing the softball field that's shy of 300 feet to make sure it was 300 feet, to add the distance so that it would qualify for a tournament. So they listened to you, Mike. And they also suggested increasing the size of the netting to a larger, so those home runs would go into the nets as opposed to the splash pond. And then the other recommendation was to have a second softball field there, which would be the 300 feet and in a separate area, more so to the left of that, because the park goes quite a distance over to the left with nothing on it yet. So I think if you keep following that, that's something that could be, as you know, CPA, that you might be able to go to CPA through the recreation department and not wait for the studies and, other stuff that's going on, because you have a good plan for your September tournaments. If those were built, those tournaments would create economic development soon. And if you can get, in the fall, approval with the CPA, and then built the next year, you would be beating everybody else. And
that would be okay.
I think it's something for you to really think about, and you have the expertise because you've been with CPA and you've worked with recreation knows you as well. And I'm sure they would help you do that if that's something that everybody wants. Again, keep following the select board and.
Yeah, our league and myself and others in particular have been involved in the surveys for the field use study. So we know what they're looking for.
Yep.
What we don't need is fields at both sites.
Right.
That would be duplicative, and you wouldn't get much use out of them.
Right.
So, but we are tapped into both, and
Well, those particular fields could be for the benefit, it would be the cost of the town, but that's something a little bit less than a sports facility and, but it would benefit the recreation department in terms of renting out. So that would be a plus for the town as well. So,
Yeah, our league is about 400 seniors from age 50 to, we say, 150.
yeah,
We have this one tournament you mentioned every year in September, brings in over 1,200 people for 6 days.
and so I bet the hotels and motels of Yarmouth enjoy that.
We do. We work with Mary Vilbon and others to help find hotels and restaurants and all
Right,
that. We have a lot of great sponsors here in Yarmouth,
right.
from the Sea Dog Restaurant.
But just
on.
think that if you had that and you used it and you showed the town what could be done, then maybe the town itself, the recreation department, could invite others that might do the same thing in the beautiful weather of October on Cape Cod and, stretch that shoulder season for the businesses in the town. So I think you are a made for, go for it now kind of position, but it's not my decision, but I would encourage you to keep going.
We find that people who participate in senior softball are also golfers. They play pickleball.
Yep,
They're active. They want to
Right.
be active.
right,
So there's lots that we can contribute.
right. I'm so thankful that you came tonight and
Sure.
are speaking again. So you've done a nice job, and I just keep hoping you keep doing the same thing. This is exactly what our goal is in terms of looking at this site to increase the needs that we have. And your job that you've been doing creates exactly in that line. So thanks a lot, Mike.
Okay.
Who's next? Come on now. Anybody else?
Sandy Fruin.
Hi, Sandy. She's a
Hi.
good friend.
Yeah,
And,
I
and
have
let
a.
me, before you start, I've got to let everyone know, you were the person responsible for the organization of
Oh, God.
pickleball in this town. She created and worked for years building a huge pickleball group. And,
Well, with the help of you, Sharon, we do a lot of things
well,
together.
I went to CPA with you and
CPA,
in the
very
finance
helpful.
committee.
I have a series of questions, and so I don't want to, I didn't know if there were other questions. I'd be glad to wait, but they're in different categories. So I'd be willing to wait if somebody else just had a one or two question. I think I just want to preface that.
Anyone else? Go ahead, sir.
Okay.
What about any sort of indoor miniature golf?
Well, why don't you make sure you go to the mic and ask that question?
Is there any possibility of an indoor miniature golf that you could
Oh,
charge for in the off-season?
I-
In that sports complex?
Yeah. Well, the fact that you're sitting up, standing up and mentioning it will be in the next report. And so we can have a discussion. That if it gets recommended in terms of the interior, that's the next phase. So design of the actual building. So of the interior of the building. So I would suggest to you as well, if you have this thing for indoor, that you follow the next phase and pay attention to some of the meetings that they're going to have in terms of the studies that they're going to do. And if that's a draw, that certainly, I would think,
Well, I
be
was thinking it might
presented.
be a source of revenue
Yeah,
for the town.
yep, thank you for thinking about that, yep. Debbie?
Yes, I just want to let Mike know that I was just appointed again to be on the CPA and as representative for recreation. So Mike, please, please come. I've known you for years and I know what you do for the town. And it's like the chamber, they go all out all the time. So I'm here and I will be more than glad to steer you in the right direction to get what you need.
Thank you very much, Debbie,
No-
appreciate that.
No problem.
This little young lady is Mary Vilbon, director of the, if you're not familiar, she's the director of the Yarmouth Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you for introducing me.
Welcome.
That's great. I just wanted to take a minute, thank all of the committee for the hard work that you've done, the chamber, and me personally as a resident appreciate that. I just wanted to support, I know Deb just supported Mike, but I just wanted to say that the Senior Softball League is just an example of some of the groups that the chamber works with day in and day out. We've been supporting Mike's group for several years, and in many conversations, Mike and I have talked about the fields and, the size of the fields not being up to, what their demand is. And the fact that those tournaments could grow from 1,200 people to 2,000 people in a tournament, that is a big economic impact, those 800 people that would come here on the off season. I know we had just mentioned also the indoor space, but I am going to mention this because other groups over the years that we've spoken with are YD Red Sox, the Cape Cod Baseball League. For some of you that have followed them over the years, they have somewhat relocated their Hall of Fame in different locations and unfortunately haven't been successful. And so when the conversation started about this particular site, I thought, what a unique opportunity that may be for Yarmouth to have that conversation with the league about bringing the Hall of Fame to this building. And who's to say they couldn't have an annual event there? Invite some of the MLB players back here to Yarmouth that maybe started their careers here. So there's some amazing opportunities here that we just have to think out of the box. And I'm really excited about the opportunity that this could have for the community. So again, thank you.
Well, I appreciate, and before you go, you had mentioned this to me at a meeting, and I was surprised because I thought they were still at the Kennedy Space Museum in Hyannis, and then learned by Googling that they were considering the Ryan Amusement Building at the space at the end, and then they were going to use the Moose, and I guess they got a grant of money to investigate whether they could build that. But that did not work out. And then I saw all of it disappear, and it went out of Google. And so I called up Mary and got the gentleman's name that's the president, and also learned of the Yarmouth Dennis Red Sox president as well. And I just did send him a copy of tonight's meeting in case he had time or effort, but I'm not sure it got to him in time. But I did speak with the president of the Cape Cod Baseball League, and I talked with him about having him come to our next meeting, which he has indicated he would be interested in doing, maybe through Zoom, not personally, but I just wanted to have that conversation with him because I think that's a possibility, whether a developer would want him to be in the building that we're eventually talking about or some other fashion. They have increased their, just to let you know, Mary, he said that they increased the number of volunteers they had for the nonprofit part of their system of doing the once-a-year event of the Hall of Fame inductees from the Cape Cod Baseball League that they presently do at Wequassett. And so I thought that was a positive in terms of that there's maybe some growth going on because it's an all-volunteer group.
Oh, and it's a major attraction
Factor.
here
and
on
they've
Cape
done
Cod.
so much. They've done a very successful league for years. Actually, it's considered one of the best in the country. So, and people love to come in the summer and watch the games. So it's like old time Cape Cod.
And again, when you start thinking about the indoor space, and I know that's not what you're really planning for tonight and getting comments on, but again, you know we're losing the conference center in Hyannis soon. So if you can have a versatile indoor space that might be able to have a small one-day conference. You know, the chamber has looked over this many, many times over the years of our meeting space. And we all need space like for tonight's meeting, but there's many groups that come to town that we could host at 300 people, right? So being thoughtful about how the space could be very versatile. And I think truthfully, a developer will be looking for that because that's an income generator for them. So just,
Right. Well, thank you very much. And I do quote you. I want you to know that I quote you in terms of the Economic Development Committee, in terms of your group that came and did the brainstorming. I do quote you, I think it was when I first learned that your comment about housing was that it is an economic development. So you know, what's happening here on the Cape is losing people because they can't afford to live or earn enough income to pay the rents and what have you. So,
well, and those are our employees and our businesses.
Yep.
So we want to keep them here.
yep. So thank you for making that, because I quote you now.
Thank you.
How about, yes? Hi.
My name's Dave Botting, and unlike the others that have already spoken ahead of me, people probably don't know me as well. But I've been involved in some of the focus groups, and I want to begin by just thanking the committee for your work. I know the amount of time you guys have put into this. I watched you at some of the focus groups, been to your meetings, and it's been incredible. The second thing I want to thank you for is incorporating a sports complex into your plan. I think Yarmouth has an amazing opportunity to come up with a development, a venue, unlike anything else that's currently here on Cape Cod. My son grew up, we lived off Cape, playing soccer. So I had a great opportunity to go to a lot of these similar type facilities. And they're remarkable. And what they offer the local youth, the local communities in terms of opportunities to be in sports is amazing. And so I think there's, to be able to put something like that in Yarmouth here on the Cape where there's nothing else, is a great, wonderful opportunity we should not pass up. The last thing I'll say, because a lot of my other thoughts have been covered, but the last thing I want to talk about is access, or demand, I should say, and the amount of demand, and will there be a demand? Two things. Number one, I currently work as a consultant for a private school here on the Cape, and I'm helping them consult with regards to renting out their facilities. The demand is there. It's whether it's an adult futsal group, adult soccer, adult lacrosse. There's a lot of groups out there looking for space. Number two, I'm also involved in the soccer club. It's the only youth soccer club on Cape Cod, AC Independence. They have over 450 kids here on Cape Cod that are in the club. And when they're in season, which is really from September to like June, every weekend, half of those kids are going off Cape and the other half are staying on Cape, but there's people coming to play them at different fields and locations here on the Cape. And so in terms of business and being able to bring in potential customers, heads on beds, seats in restaurants, to have a facility like this would bring those people in and they'd be enticed to stay. I guarantee it. They may want to spend the night. They're familiar with the Cape, but to stay on the Cape in October, November, I think there's a good chance because every Saturday and Sunday they're coming here. And so those are my comments. I think from a business perspective, the real winner here will be business owners in terms of bringing more people to Cape. So
Terrific.
all I had to
Thank you
say.
for coming
Thanks.
to the podium. We appreciate that. Anybody else other than Sandy, who has a few questions? Oh, no. Yeah, please. Wait a minute, Sandy. Sandy. Wait a minute. What's that? You're trying, though.
Just in time. My name's Ken McGuire. I'm a resident of the town. I'm a business owner in town.
I can.
I literally just ran from my office to get over here. I was watching you online. Would have been nice to be able to communicate if that was a possibility. But I've attended also a lot of the meetings in person or virtually, trying the best I can because I know this is a big deal for this town. Very much support the recreational facility. I think that's awesome. It shows in your report, right? That was the biggest number one thing it seemed like out there. A couple of things that I'm not sure about, I just want some clarity around, I guess, is one comment was made about needing to do rezoning for this project. I may have missed it. What's causing to have to rezone? Is it the housing? Is it the facility? What is it?
Well, we have our town planner here.
Kathy Williams, town planner. Yeah, it's residentially zoned right now, R40, which means like to have one house, you'd need 40,000 square feet. So you need to rezone it so that we can have a little bit higher density to allow for some of the options that we have there. And also things like private clubs or sports facilities like this aren't really allowed in a residential zoning area. So we need to take a look at what kind of all the different uses that might come out of a sports complex and make sure that when we're looking at rezoning, maybe through an overlay district over the entire 70-acre parcel, that we can accommodate all of those particular uses.
Okay, that makes sense.
Still needs to go to town meeting and get voted on, just so everyone knows. There's a process.
So if that got voted down, that could kill the project?
It would put a serious dent in it. We'd have to find out why it failed and see whether we could approach it in a different way and then try again.
Because, I mean, I live across the street. I live off of Cochessa Path. So there's a big concern for me.
Yeah.
It's been great. I have grandkids, and they go to school right across the street. So one of my disappointments were there's only one option here with a school. And I've been to other meetings where I hear the superintendent and other people saying, putting students over on Station Ave doesn't seem like the best option. I love the idea of having a school not on Station Ave and having a place for kids to go. By the time this gets done, my grandkids are going to be too old to go there if it's still elementary school, but that doesn't matter. I think it's a big deal for this town to have more than just Station Ave as a school center. And it's just another facility too, I think, for things to occur at. The other thing that kind of concerned me a little bit is the density of this housing that's proposed in every single one of these, and lack of really true open space. I don't really see a lot of that. I heard a lot of that at the meetings I attended. I heard people say, housing wasn't at the top of the list. I know that we need housing, but there's a lot that's been built in this town, affordable housing. I don't know if that's full or what's going on with it. I'm not that involved. But that concerns me a bit in jamming a lot of that housing on that street. Again, it's on the town aquifer. We just acquired all those lots behind my house to add to the town aquifer, which I think was a great purchase for $1 million. But I'm very concerned about that. The density of the housing, what are you going to do? Is it going to be affordable, not affordable, all of that. I'm sure that obviously there's going to be more meetings around this. That was really my main things that I heard. I had time to kind of write questions about and be concerned about. Love the sports facility. I think that's absolutely a need in the town and for the whole Cape, actually, because there really isn't anything that exists. I too would thank you. I know I've been on committees, done things. It's a lot of work, a lot of time, it's another job usually. So I do appreciate all of that. So I'm not trying to poo-poo any of the work that's been done, but I know I will be up and voicing my concerns and putting some time and effort into making sure that, we try to get what we all need.
Right.
But thank
So
you.
are there any particular questions that haven't been answered, or would you like more information about? So I don't want you to walk away with not getting any kind of answers. There's a difference of housing on a town-owned piece of land, in my opinion, than what you've seen or heard in terms of 40B. Housing on the town land is still going to be 40B, but who is it that owns it and controls it in terms of what you want to do? There also is a new vision that the planning board has been doing with the local comprehensive plan that is trying to create additional housing on Route 28 with businesses. So it's a whole different kind of feel but it's still, 40B still exists so that private owners can come.
Right.
And there was a change because they got some grief, the last people, in terms of the design of the housing. I don't want to make this a housing
Yeah.
thing, but I don't want you to walk away without appreciating the need in the town for it.
And
And
I
that this is
understand.
a better opportunity
Yeah.
to do something that we need to do.
I understand it. It's
Yeah.
just also, where does it go? It's like all the conversation, right? Where does it go, and then what type of it? Because obviously those answers will drive who and what people are going to be residing in those places.
Well, that's
I don't want to, again, like you said, I don't want to turn it into a
conversation,
housing
too.
thing, but I have concerns around
Yeah,
that.
well, that's a different conversation that's
Yeah.
occurring.
Yeah.
And you can look on our website to see the housing plan. It's a
did.
very, whatever. So there's a moderated level and a elevated level that we talked about earlier, which I didn't do a
Well,
great job
72 to
about.
108, right? So, I mean, that's still a lot on a town aquifer area.
Well, we're doing sewage,
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah,
Kathy,
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
I think one of the things that when we purchased the property across the street, we weren't thinking we were necessarily going to be coming up with sewer in the very near future. But now, there's no way we can do any of the things that we're proposing here with even moderate density for housing without bringing sewers to the site. We do need to protect our aquifer. That goes
Right.
something that we can't get back. So we want to make sure that that's being done properly. I think with regard to density, like if you go to alternative B, I mean, this is the one that shows the school in the back and basically shows the housing. I mean, I don't know how, I mean, you can see that's 8 acres there and almost 8 acres in the back, so, or 8 or 9 acres. So maybe it's like 10 to 12 units per acre. But then the rest of the site, you'd have the school and then a whole bunch of open space for the fields, but then also leaving all of that constrained area on the top there. I think we're trying to, in some of the alternatives that you see, we're trying to leave that buffer sometimes along Mattacheese, or I'm sorry, along
Higgins
Higgins
Road.
Kroll. So if that's something that people are saying, you know what, that's really important to me, I'd prefer not to have the housing along Higgins Kroll, I'd prefer to have a buffer, and then you can have the housing behind it. Things like that would be very useful comments for us to hear so that we can talk about as we move forward how it might get designed. But I think a lot of the alternatives were showing like, okay, if the school did happen to move and did go somewhere else, what could it be filled in with, and it gives some ideas, or nothing.
Right.
Or,
Well, that's
or nothing.
That was one of my things when I looked at all these alternatives is it's full. And that one of the things I heard a lot of was wanting of open space. And I would love to see, I'm not going to call it park, but whatever, some kind of open space in the design. It just would break it up, separate it, make it more enjoyable. You've got a sports facility, now you have an outside area to go do something with, right? Whether, like, I know the chamber works to have entertainment, and now it's at the beach, right? That's how on top of it I am sometimes on this stuff. But I mean, there's a space that potentially could handle something like that, which would be fantastic, right? More opportunity to do things for the people in town, never mind, and our visitors. But that's why I like the sports facility, because it helps all these groups. But the townspeople who pay for it, the business owners who pay for it, that's, to me, that's a huge benefit to give them a facility like that could accommodate all of those things.
Well, part of that is also about ownership. That's a question that's also going on in terms of how does the town maintain some control. But they don't have money to build this, so it's not going to be on the tax rolls, because there's wastewater that's just a huge expense.
Yeah.
And a new library perhaps, a new school, and then the upkeep of just our existing capital. So I don't envision, this is just me speaking, I don't envision that this will be paid for by the town to do this. It'll have to be a public-private partnership.
I envision the same thing.
Okay.
But
yeah.
it's still, we're still going to write checks one way or another for something. It's to help
Well, there-
fund it and or maintain.
Yeah.
Right? But even the housing part, whatever does get, if it ever gets approved for that, I think that'll be a heavy lift. But if that does, that could be the same, right? You could put out requirements, have a builder come in, and they're the ones taking the finance risk of building and then selling, within limitations. But anyway, there's a lot of ground to cover from here to
Well,
there.
I'd
but-
suggest that you keep following it, and
Oh, I am,
especially
yeah.
the 6 and 7 as well, because that will be some of the financial stuff.
Yeah.
You're the Ken McGrath that was on the school committee. correct?
McGuire, yes.
Yes, I'm the Sharon Weimer that
I
was
know,
on
yeah,
the school
yeah,
committee.
I remember, yeah.
So the two of us served the same time. We had some
Yeah.
interesting times, Ken.
Oh, yeah, nothing like getting elected and cut $1 million.
But I so appreciate your staying involved, and I know you're an open-minded guy, so you're willing to listen and learn, which is a wonderful attribute that you have. So keep following, and
Definitely will, yeah,
Okay.
but thank you,
thank you, Ken.
appreciate it.
Yes. How do you do that? Oh, and can you read their names?
Excuse me. I'm Lee Hamilton, and I'm on the, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. Give me a moment.
Nice to see you, Lee, here. So thank you for coming. And
I'm on the Affordable Housing Committee, Community Housing Committee, and the representative to the Community Preservation Committee. And housing has been my passion. And I'm very excited. This is going to have some housing in it. I currently own an affordable housing home that's deed-restricted, and it took me a long time to find stable housing. I've lived on the Cape for, I don't know, since the early 70s, and moved around a whole lot, and it was a living nightmare. And I had a realtor call my son one time when the house was being sold and told him, "You have to move right away. You're going to be homeless." And I came home and he was hysterical. So I've left every single house I've lived in better than I found it. And some of them were pretty bad. So I'm very grateful to be where I am now. And it was a long journey, and I wish I had done it many, many years earlier. And I worked on affordable housing issues, and I've worked on actually a list for Housing Assistance Corporation of where the affordable homes were in the Cape. And I bumped into somebody at Housing Assistance Corporation that I knew for years and said, "I just bought a house. Why didn't you do this?" So I did. It took me a year and a half through the training and everything, and I'm very, very grateful to be there. So when I look at the possibility of these units, we all know that they're needed. We all know that I see Habitat building the individual homes. I don't know what it means when people talk about them being smaller. I don't quite know what that means. But I can see that that could be a Habitat project. And we all know Habitat does a really good job. And it's one of the really good programs. So I just want to advocate for, I'm very excited to see a lot of units for housing on here. And I think they're very needed. And I can see that these homes could be Habitat homes. And that's my wish. I hope I see that before I'm too old to be able to stand here. So I just wanted to, I've done a lot of research on housing. I've done studies on homelessness. I helped working on the HUD continuing care application for many, many years, which provided supportive housing to get people off the street. Who knows what's going to happen to that now? But so I just wanted to just briefly state my background came from the need for affordable housing. Got it after many years when I wish I did it years ago. And I'm very grateful for that.
Well, I appreciate all the work you do on the Community Housing Committee, and also the recognition for the whole Housing Committee that I was liaison to. Did a great job of thinking of others in terms of this site. I think that was one of the most pleasant parts of listening to the housing group, that they wanted recreation on the site, that they wanted to include different things that are needs. I also think that this is a very special piece of land. and that I agree with Heather that this could be a phasing thing, because this land is so important and so like gold to a private developer. So it doesn't have to be immediate. It doesn't have to be tons of things right off the bat. It
It's
can,
unlikely it will, and especially when we don't know what's going to happen to the school.
right,
as you
and that's a hard thing to wait for, but that's what we were dealt, and we certainly want to give the opportunity for the land to be used for a school if that's what they choose to do.
Well, I'm very grateful and glad to see some units being provided in this. Hopefully, some of them will come to fruition. And we have worked very hard in the Community Housing Committee,
Right.
and appreciate your presence at them as well. So thank you.
Thank you. And just to make one final comment, Ken needs to follow the Emmy Small Building Committee because they're going to choose what they want to do. It's not our decision at all, but we're giving them certainly a yes to that we would save the 6 to 8 acres that they requested for a project. So,
And I understand this concern with having that off of Station Ave with all the other schools. It's already very congested.
it's congested.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, it's congested, but there may be educational value to do it, or also to include West Yarmouth and not exclude them from what might be. I don't know how they view it. I just know I have to be open-minded about it, and whatever they decide is what's going to be. So,
Well, thank you for acknowledging the hard work that our committee has done as well.
but you have. You're a great committee. I like your committee. Mary, yeah? Oh, and we do have somebody that
do.
wants to speak.
They have their hand raised
Right,
remotely.
so we'll do them after Mary and before Sandy.
Thank you. Again, Mary Vilbon with the Yarmouth Chamber and resident of Yarmouth. So I did write this down, and then when Ken came up, it made me think about asking the question. So if the school committee comes back and says, yes, we want these 8 acres of land, does that mean those other 4 scenarios are completely wiped out?
No, in terms of what's on it, no, it just, in other words, we pick the largest square footage for the building.
Right.
All of that can be adjusted, and the whole design can be, instead of the buildings so far apart, they could be small, or, I'm not sure what you're asking
So I
in the
guess
sense
I'm
of
just wondering if the conceptual plans that you're providing us tonight, if the school comes back as only one of them, really a valid concept that we are looking at tonight, if that is the case.
Yes.
So I think there's flexibility. As I mentioned before, this is kind of a menu of options. We built out kind of a maximum build out in terms of the sports facility and field sizes. Those can be manipulated based on conversations with a potential developer. If they want a smaller size building or if they want an additional playing field, all of those things can be negotiated. The housing shows a certain density at about 10 acres. Oh, 10 units per acre. There we go. Yes. So, it gives you a sense of what it could be there. But if townhomes were preferred instead of an apartment building, or if a subdivision was preferred instead of an apartment building, that can happen on the site as well, because there is the room based on our fit outs that shows that any of those developments could fit there.
And is our timing somewhat aligned with the school committee planning right now?
No. Well, it may be.
In a way,
Right, yep.
I think they're going through their process now where they're looking at potential sites, and they're going to have to narrow down what their preferred site is. So as they go through that process, we're going through the next step in this project, which is through the mass development funding, which will help to further the design as well as further confirm that there is a need and a demand for the uses that have been proposed. So, 12 to 18 months from now is when that next phase is going to be done. And I think there'll be a lot more clarity
From
along the
school
way
at
with the
that
school.
point. Right.
But in answer to your particular question, so if the school stays there on one of the options, I think it was one of the options, it might have been A, I can't remember, but that you wouldn't have any housing in the middle because you'd still have, hopefully with a new school, the solar would be on top, so the land would be, the gold land would still be available for something, but so in terms of some of the stuff that is on the plans, it wouldn't be available to do.
Okay.
But it's going to take them, they haven't even started looking at sites yet. They need to hire people, their project manager, their designer. The designer is important for them to start to look at the feasibility of where they want to build and or not build.
Right. But that's
So-
why it's important for us to be somewhat in line with what they're doing.
Yes, but I think one of the ideal things about whenever you have the sports complex on the right, once you take down the Mattacheese building, you have all of that land on that entire right that's ready for development.
That's
know,
the
so-
phasing part,
Right.
that you could do work there. You could apply for grants for whatever you're going to do. Design of piping down Buck Island Road to get the sewer up to Higgins Kroll. There's plenty of grant money just for design work and for actually cutting the roads and putting the pipes in too. There's some money. So
Okay.
you need to take advantage of those things if that's what you're going to do at the site. So.
All right, thank you.
And who is, we need to tell the gentleman in the back?
Gabriel, can you let Reg talk? He has his hand raised.
Hi,
Hi.
good evening. My name is Regina Wood. I live in West Yarmouth. I'm a former teacher. I work now at the new building, but I used to work at Mattacheese.
Yeah.
And I just want to, I've watched many of the meetings, and there is a pond behind Mattacheese.
Yes.
And I heard one of the meetings, somebody referred to it as just a swampy area. And I was curious as to
No.
if there's a plan for what that is, because I know that there are animals that live there, and I think it might even be a vernal pool.
It
Correct.
is a vernal pool.
It is it is, they just recently, this past spring, got enough water to qualify, I guess, as a vernal pool. And
The swampy area that was referred to is the area that is
in front.
of Higgins
Oh,
Kroll.
that's the one, okay. Not Tar Pond.
Okay, because I was quite concerned. So that vernal pond behind the school would remain?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. I think it's wonderful that what you guys are doing. I appreciate all your work. And I really think that our students, our teenagers need a place to go and need fields to play on and places to play that I know our surrounding communities have things like that for. Harwich does and Barnstable does. And I think it's important for our students and our teenagers to have some place to go.
Well, thank you very much, Regina. And we do too. We think all of that too.
Do you want to inquire whether any, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Are there any others?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else remotely would like to comment, and if so, please feel free to raise your hand. We can.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Right. Anyone else? Kathy, I can't see it.
Not
so-
right now, but sometimes it takes people a little while to figure out
Okay,
how to
do
raise
it.
their hand.
I think Mike had his hand up, Sandy, so you can't come up yet.
Two quick questions. In any of the concepts, is there a thought of putting lights on the playing fields?
I think part of the economic development group had us request for lighting on the soccer fields, I think, at Mattacheese. So whether that will get done, because we did have some neighborhood people come in that indicated they were concerned about lighting and noise at the site for doing this. So that is something that 6 and 7 will be dealing with in terms of whether you can aim the light a certain way so it won't affect with our immediate neighbors. I don't know how that works. So, but I'm not sure if I answered your question, but yes.
I think that's to be determined. You know, we did not program any specific site elements into our concept plans right now. I think we were mindful of the impact to the neighborhood and in trying to maintain certain buffers from the street and from adjacent houses. And I think that lighting is sophisticated in a way that it would light specifically the fields and not much else around it. So I think the answer is potentially right now.
Okay. I'm sure it depends on concept. If you're over near Chickadee, maybe you're too close to the residential. Okay. My other question was, in that field use study that the Recreation Department has been looking at, in addition to the 2 softball fields, they were talking about 3 soccer fields. So if soccer goes over to Sandy Pond, what happens in these concepts to where you have soccer planned now? Is it going to go residential? Is it going to go parking? Or?
Can I answer this?
Yep.
So the thought here is that the playing fields primarily are to support the sports complex. So this would be more tournament style format versus town recreational usage. You know, I think Kathy might have a little bit more information, but
I guess the other thing is we're going to be looking at this over the next year and a half and figuring out whether this makes sense, whether there's a developer who's interested in it and coming up with the different components. And I think that's kind of what Sharon was trying to get at. Don't start with the soccer fields necessarily at Sandy Pond. Start with your softball fields and then get that going. And then by the time, you know, we might be ready to move on to the actual soccer fields there, we'll have a much better understanding of what's going on here and what we as a community might need at Sandy Pond. We may not need that many fields. There may be some of the soccer groups that are coming to this particular location and renting here, and we don't need to do it, and takes off some of the burden of our local fields. So that's something that can be determined more in the future as this gets vetted a little bit further. I know it seems like we've done an enormous amount of work because we have, but we're just starting. There's a lot more work that needs to be going on. We came up with these ideas, we vetted it a little bit more, we came up with the concept designs, and we still got a long way of going to make sure that we have a viable project for our community.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Sandy?
First of all, I do really want to compliment this committee on all the work you've done. It's incredible. Even reading the plethora of information, it's time-consuming to read it, so I can't imagine going through all these meetings that you've all done. So kudos to all of you. I'm fascinated what a project it is. And what a great job. In terms of communication, too, I think the communication has been absolutely fabulous. So I just want to start there. I was going to go in another direction. I do have a series of questions. One of them is about the fields at the complex. When reading and following the presentation that was done by the field study, it's my understanding that they determined for the community purposes that there were enough fields as they existed with the expansion of an additional baseball field at Sandy Pond. So I have 2 parts to that. So my first question, which I think you already answered, was, so why are there so many fields that are the land's being used for fields here? Is the purpose of it for economic development? And you answered yes. So that's what the purpose of that is, because there are a lot of fields, and I know for community purposes, it was determined by the land study that we had enough. So this is solely for the purpose of economic development. Am I correct in that?
Correct.
Okay. So the second part in that field study, not that you can answer this, but I'm really surprised that they didn't look at Flax Pond. And I'll tell you why. I understand that there is a camp there, but that is only for a period of 6 weeks, maybe 8 tops. And so I feel that that was a real missed opportunity, because in the previous study that was done, they did look at Flax Pond. And the reason I say that is that I believe has the most acreage, upland acreage, and that was eliminated from the study, and I think that's a missed opportunity for other opportunities for fields, et cetera. So just making that point. So I'm going to go back to, you mentioned selling the property, and then I believe you mentioned town-owned. So my question basically is, are we going towards selling the property, or are we looking more towards maintaining it like a long-term lease?
We're looking to maintain the property, not sell
Okay,
it.
great.
Yeah,
Yes.
have a private-public
Because
partnership.
I thought I heard 2 things, scenarios, and I wasn't sure which way. So that you would maintain more control.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
so that was great news. Then on the solar piece, first of all, can you tell me what the acreage of the solar field is in? Does anyone know what the approximate
It's
acreage
almost,
there is?
yeah, it's between 3 and 4 acres.
3 and 4 acres. And that contract is coming to an end probably in the next, what is it, 5 to 7 years or something like that?
I think they're having some difficulty finding what that is, but my recollection of when it was actually installed was probably around 2013, 2014, and they're typically 20 years. So, yeah, that's a
coming
little bit
toward the end.
longer than the roof. There was also solar on the roof of the Mattacheese building, which I believe expires in 31 or 32.
Oh, there is solar up there. Yeah, because that was my other question is,
I thought
that,
the
you know-
one with Emmy Small was the 31, but
30?
31 expires at 31.
Yeah, I think
I don't
there's-
know.
we're having difficulty finding the ground-mounted information, but the one that's on the actual roof, I think we do know.
We do, I thought it was the one on the roof that was 31.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, because that was the other thing is, so again, it was, did you say 3 to 4 acres is what the solar
Yes.
panels take up? And so I heard that there was a conversation of they're looking to decommission that. That's what the thought is. But if you were going to add solar, and I think it loses its effectiveness over time anyways, right? So you're not really, it's not cost effective after a while. But, you know, if you were reinstalling it, what a great idea to put it on top of things, you know, like on top of buildings or housing or whatever. And I'm really glad that there is a housing piece in this. I really feel that if you are trying to employ people on Cape Cod, they can't afford to live here. They can't afford to rent. They certainly can't afford to buy. You know, as a little side piece, I was just calling the building department trying to get ideas. I'm doing homeowners insurance. You know, when you're realizing the square footage, it's, you know, anywhere from $300 to $500 a square foot. Because I was looking at replacement costs for my property. And I thought, that is unbelievable. I mean, so people that are here, you know, doing minimum wage or trying to stay here on the Cape, we really need to be able to afford things like that, especially a lot of employees in a lot of places. So I'm really very happy to see that you do have a housing piece in there. I think it's really important. And then I was going to ask that question about mix and match, depending on what scenario. These aren't all, you're not picking scenario A, B, C, D. It's really, it's all a mix and match. You could come up with one scenario and then pull from the other things. Is that correct? It's not one of these is cut in stone. You pick this one and that's what we're going to do. I think that was what Mary was asking too. If you put the school here, then everything else is, you know, is the way it is according to that school plan. But if I heard it correct, it's still a mix and match. Is that?
Yeah, I
you can mix
think
and
Heather
match?
responded well. I mean, you have the apartment complex up in the back, but maybe those are townhouses or a smaller lot, residential subdivision or something that we could be putting in that location.
Okay, and so then the last piece, for me anyways, is the feasibility. Will this all work if you have a complex? You know, but this is a further out, a phase that's a little further out, because I was thinking about grants. You know, I know that I looked up just actually before I came here, what's like one of the largest buildings we have on Cape Cod as a point of comparison. And from what I could find, it seems like it's the Hyannis Community Center at 102 square feet. And I decided, well, how was
100,000?
that?
100,000? You said 100.
102, yeah, sorry, 102,000 square feet, sorry about that. But I was wondering how that was funded. And it was funded with Commonwealth of Massachusetts funds. The Department of Education gave $1 million. LaRusso, who I guess did the LaRusso Lodge here in Yarmouth, they contributed $1 million too. So I was wondering, you know, I'm sure you probably have a lot of grant resources, but those three came right up, never minding private donations. And that LaRusso was a private donation. And then they had fundraising, et cetera. So I think that's the combination of my questions. I mean, you know, it's so great that you've done all this work, and it is a lot of work, a lot of time spent. As I said, I spent time going through it. I was online, and I'm glad that you offer that opportunity too for the previous community grouping. And I'm really impressed with the scenarios that have come out. Even how the bubbles changed from what the bubbles were to what you ended up coming up with. So thank you again for all your hard work.
Thank you, Sandy. We can still have other people speak. All right, so I thank you very much for all attending. I hope you stay engaged, and there is lots of information on our website if you feel like reading at night. And what we'd like to do now is invite you to take your time and look at the different plans that are here on the easels around. And if there's sticky notes right up here on the table and pens, if anybody wants to add a sticky note to make a point on the actual plan, you're welcome to do that. You can either write them here or while you're standing and looking. And we'll have a few of us in the area if you'd rather just tell us what your thoughts are about any particular plan too. We'll write it down. So thank you again. And we'll see you at the plans.
So I think we're going to end the remote portion of the meeting at this time.
Sorry.
Thank you, Gabriel.